Hello and welcome to this edition of Wineskins, a program that features reflections on the lives of the saints and sacred scriptures, along with information on topics and issues from a Catholic perspective. I'm Father Jim Corda. Wineskins is brought to you by the annual Bishop's Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts, a division of the Society of St. Paul. On our show today, I will interview Dana Balish from WFMJ TV 21 from our television series Spotlight. We will also look at the life of Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta, as well as reflections on the readings for this 22nd Sunday in Ordinary Time. That and more coming up on Wineskins. In our current issue segment, I will speak with Mary Ellen Brannigan and Ray Novotny from the First Friday Club. Joining me now is Mary Ellen Brannigan and Ray Novotny from the First Friday Club. Welcome to Wineskins.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you.
You know, what's nice about First Friday Club is that we here in this diocese get to hear some really powerful, wonderful presenters. And I'm sure that this 2017-2018 roster will prove to be just as wonderful. So give us some flavor as to who might be coming and what are some of the topics that we'll hear.
We are starting out in September with Reverend Robin Woodbury, who's a local minister with New Bethel Baptist, and her topic is Together We Serve, Together We Celebrate, and she is the chairperson of the Mahoning Valley Association of Churches. In October, we have Charlotte Osterman, who's a Catholic speaker. Her topic is Balance in Three Dimensions. In November, Britt Cooper is bringing in the Walsh University Chamber Singers and doing a presentation on music in liturgy. December is Diana Hayes. She's a retired professor from Georgetown University. Her topic is Standing in the Shoes My Mother Made, a Womanist Theology.
In January, Sister Regina Rogers is going to bring in a panel of students from the area Catholic high schools. And in February, Bishop Murray will be our speaker. In March, Dermot Quinn, who is a professor and director of graduate studies at Seton Hall, will speak on Irish Catholics in America. In April, Joy Schroeder, who is a professor of religion at Capital University, will present Martin Luther. In May, Dr. Darlene Weaver, a professor at Duquesne University, will speak to us on examining conscience, responsibilities, sources, and methods.
In June, but we're having it on May 31st, Father Nathan Castle, who is a teacher, preacher, and workshop facilitator, is going to talk to us about young adult outreach and campus ministries. July is Sheila McGinn, Theology Department Chair from John Carroll University, talking about science and religion. And in August, the Reverend Edward Brins, Director of Missions in the diocese, will talk to us about his work in missions and also about Cafe Augustine, which is in the Newport Public Library.
Now, we know that the First Friday Club really has been in existence for over 10 years now, but you've moved your location. So tell the folks that are with us where exactly it's going to be, and give us some time and place.
Our luncheons are held typically on the first Thursday of the month. They're held at the Georgetown Banquet Center, which is located at 5945 South Avenue in Boardman, Ohio. The luncheons start at 11:30 with a buffet, and then our speaker starts promptly at noon, and we end at 1 o'clock so that everyone can go back to work or get on with their days.
Now, is there a cost for all of this?
Yes, the luncheons are $16 a person.
And are these sponsored by someone in particular? Like, how do people come to this, and how do they know more about this? Through their parish, through other organizations?
Yes, but we are sponsored in many different ways. There are local organizations who actually sponsor the cost of a speaker coming in. We also have many parishes throughout the diocese who book a table of 4 or 6 or 8 for every individual talk. And I know that Catholics usually run on their stomachs. The menu and the food is absolutely fantastic. Everything from lemon chicken and whitefish and chicken marsala and roast pork loins and stuffed cabbage and all the wonderful things that we always love to eat.
Now, sometimes, Ray, those sound a little bit better than maybe some of the topics, but I think the topics are a lot better. And so we want to feed people's souls as well as their body through the First Friday Club. Is there a website that people can contact to get more information?
Yes, we are available at First Friday Club of GreaterYoungstown.org.
Now, in kind of closing of our time together, is there anything you'd like to leave the folks that are listening with us about First Friday Club? Any encouragement about participating and how they can learn more about it?
Everybody is welcome, whether you are a Catholic or something else. We are open for everybody coming. Many of our speakers are Catholic, but not all. We have Lutheran minister this year and speakers of other persuasions. So we have an appeal to a broad range of people, and everybody is encouraged and welcome to come and spend that hour on the first Thursday of every month with us.
Well, Mary Ellen Brannigan, Ray Novotny, as always, it's a pleasure to have you on Wineskins. And to learn more about the First Friday Club, we of Wineskins certainly are very supportive of the First Friday Club. We enjoy having the guest speakers come here. We do an interview with them. And so we certainly look forward to more information throughout the coming year, and also to let the folks that are with us know that we are supportive and we want them to be supportive as well. So thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
For Wineskins, I'm Father Jim Corda. This coming Tuesday, the Church celebrates a feast of Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta. To tell us more is Brother Dominic Calabro. He is from the Society of St. Paul in Canfield and the production assistant at CTNY.
Born on August 26, 1910, to Albanian parents in what is now Macedonia, Agnes was the youngest of 3 children who survived. For a time, the family lived comfortably, and her father's construction business thrived. During her years in public school, Agnes participated in the Catholic sodality and showed a strong interest in the foreign missions. At age 18, she entered the Loreto Sisters in Dublin. It was 1928 when she said goodbye to her mother for the final time and made her way to a new land and a new life. The following year, she was sent to the Loreto Novitiate in India. There, she chose the name Teresa and prepared for the life of service. She was assigned to a high school for girls in Calcutta, where she taught history and geography to the daughters of the wealthy. But she could not escape the realities around her, the poverty, the suffering, the overwhelming numbers of destitute people. In 1946, while riding a train to make a retreat, Sister Teresa heard what later she explained as a call within a call. The message was clear. I was to leave the convent and help the poor while living among them. She also heard a call to give up her life with the Sisters of Loreto and instead to follow Christ into the slums to serve him among the poorest of the poor. After receiving permission to leave Loreto, establish a new community, and undertake her new work, she took a nursing course for several months. She returned to Calcutta, where she lived in the slums and opened a school for poor children. Dressed in white sari and sandals, the ordinary dress of an Indian woman, she soon began getting to know her neighbors, especially the poor and the sick, and getting to know their needs through visits. The work was exhausting, but she was not alone for long. Volunteers who came to join her in the work, some of them former students, became the core of the missionaries of charity. Others helped by donating food, clothing, supplies, and the use of buildings. In 1952, the city of Calcutta gave Mother Teresa a former hostel, which became a home for the dying and the destitute. As the order expanded, services were also offered to orphans, abandoned children, alcoholics, the aging, and street people. For the next 4 decades, Mother Teresa worked tirelessly on behalf of the poor. Her love knew no bounds. She crisscrossed the globe, pleading for support and inviting others to see the face of Jesus in the poorest of the poor. In 1979, she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. On September 5, 1997, God called her home. Mother Teresa of Calcutta, the tiny woman recognized throughout the world for her work among the poorest of the poor, was beatified October 19, 2003. Among those present were hundreds of missionaries of charity, the order she founded in 1950 as a diocesan religious community. Today, the congregation also includes contemplative sisters and brothers and an order of priest. Speaking in a strained voice at the Beatification Mass, St. Pope John Paul II declared her blessed, prompting waves of applause before the 300,000 pilgrims in St. Peter's Square. In his homily, read by an aide for the aging Pope, the Holy Father called Mother Teresa one of the most relevant personalities of our age and an icon of the Good Samaritan. Her life, he said, was a bold proclamation of the gospel. Mother Teresa's beatification, just over 6 years after her death, was part of an expedited process put into effect by St. Pope John Paul II. Like so many others around the world, he found her love for the Eucharist, for prayer, and for the poor a model for all to emulate. She was canonized on September 4th, 2016. For Wineskins, I'm Brother Dominic Calabro.
Hello and welcome to Spotlight. I'm Father Jim Corda. Today we're going to talk with Dana Balish, who is the sportscaster of WFMJ Channel 21. And Dana, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show today.
It's good to be here, Father. Thanks for having me.
You know, it's funny because before we started the show, I was talking with Brother Dominic and Bob, who are behind the scenes, about what am I going to talk about, because I'm not a sports person, they are, and of course I hear it every morning. But let's talk a little bit about yourself, first of all, and then we'll kind of get into some of the work that you do. So tell the folks that are with us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm homegrown. I was born in Youngstown, 53 years old. Grew up in Hubbard, Ohio. I went to St. Patrick's School for 8 years, K through 8, and then went to Hubbard High School. Following graduation in 1982, went to Kent State for a year and a half. Kind of knew what I wanted to do when I was in high school. I was the yearbook editor, wrote for the school paper. Back then there were no TV stations in schools, so I did the morning announcements. Went to Kent State for a year and a half, transferred to Youngstown State, and was very fortunate to start working in radio at WFMJ Radio while going to school, doing high school games on radio, doing some newscasts. Radio was sold in 1990, so I was in that position for 5 years, and then I became a general assignment reporter from 90 to 91. And then the sports position opened and was able to get that position, do the sports at 6 and 11. And since 1992 or 1991, I've been doing that ever since and really enjoy what I do, meet a lot of great people, and obviously cover a lot of big sporting events.
You're a very familiar face to people who not only who watch Channel 21, but in the community as well. Let's go back to your earlier days. You started out in radio. What makes radio so important? I think nowadays, a lot of people listen to the radio, and I think it's really a vehicle to really get some good information.
I think Father Corda, back in when I was in radio, there was people at radio stations 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the format that our station was adult music, was the old-time big band music, and I thought people related to that. We would get phone calls. I was usually working the overnight shift where, just monitoring things, and people would call us at 1, 2, 3 in the morning, and I think we were an avenue for people to talk to. They wanted to know, what was going on in the world of sports or in the news or the weather, because again, back then there was no internet. Right. There were 3 television stations only. So I think we were an avenue for people, senior citizens, people who were up at night to call and say, okay, how are you doing, and that sort of thing. And you got to know people by their voice, and there were many people that would call us at those late hours or early morning hours just to say hello and how was your day going. And that's, I think, was the important thing back then.
What does that tell you about people's need to kind of be in touch with other people, even though it's through the medium of the radio? There's that whole sense that it's better for us to talk to someone one-on-one and face-to-face, but sometimes the only friend that someone has might be their radio or television. Well,
I think people were lonely or lonely. People are by themselves. There's a lot of people even now who live by themselves, and I think they need that avenue. And I think back in your early 90s, people kind of knew that you were going to be there or someone was going to be there, and they listened to the radio, they heard your voice doing the weather or an update, so they would call you, and that would make you feel good because at 2, 3 in the morning you knew someone was listening. I also think people were getting up earlier at that time. There were more steel mill jobs and so on and so forth, and I think, we were just an avenue for them to say hello and be a friend to someone. I mean, some of the people that I talked to is I think, you never met them in person, but you talked to them on the phone. And I think it was important for us but I think it was more important for them.
Yeah. You started out as a newscaster and then went into sports. Do you miss the news at all?
Yes and no sometimes. You know, the last time I really put my news hat on was 9/11, you know, which was very tragic for this country and the world, and sports became secondary. But in our field of work, I encourage young people to be, you know, if you want to become sports, also learn weather and news. And at times on our station, for our morning shows on the weekend, they've had me fill in to do the morning show, which I feel very comfortable doing. You're known as a sportscaster, but I think when you have that versatility to do weather or do news, you know, people respect you more, and not more, but people know you're able to do that, and I enjoy doing that. I mean, it's a little different for me sometimes to do that. I enjoy it, you know, and I get calls about news stories. People will call me because they remember me from 20 years ago, you know, being a reporter and so on and so forth. So I miss it a little bit, but news is serious. You know, you're dealing with sometimes death and tragic. Sports is that lighthearted thing where you could kind of have fun with it.
You know, it's when you were talking, the word that came to my mind was entertainment. And I think that really is what it is, because oftentimes for us, a big industry in this country, to be entertained, and especially through sports. Why is sports so important for us as Americans?
Well, I think it's an outlet. I think when, you know, and people always come, you know, they talk about news, and comments we get is all the news you put on is bad news. Right. Well, that's what news is. In this country, thousands of planes go up every day. But when there's that one plane that crashes, that's what news is. I think sports is an outlet because I think there's sports fans that are 5 years old and there's sports fans that are 95 years old. And we get calls all the time, you know, from senior citizens again, who may not have cable or don't know where the game is, you know, what channel's the game on. So I think it's an outlet for those people to be proud of this region, Northeast Ohio, Western Pennsylvania. And I think it's an outlet for them to maybe get away from the daily news activity, the crime that we have, the drugs that we have. And I really think it's an outlet for them to smile and be proud of what this region's all about, including Cleveland and Pittsburgh.
Very briefly, we know that news has really gotten a bad hit nowadays. Just briefly make a statement about that, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in our second segment.
Well, I think news is what news is. Majority of news that we have probably is not positive, but people want to know what's going on. And there's a fine line where our assignment editors and our supervisors make that decision. We try to be positive, but sometimes that's not possible.
For more information on that current issue and to listen to Wineskins, visit the website of the Catholic Diocese of Youngstown at www.doi.org. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
I am Marino.
Je suis Marino.
I am Marino.
I believe that we are all connected to each other, and that is the gift of compassion that unites us and makes us one. It doesn't matter what language, culture, or tradition we come from. We can share compassion wherever we are.
Marino, an American Catholic organization of priests and brothers, has been reaching out to those in need for nearly 100 years in 26 countries throughout the world. Marino dedicates 86 cents of every dollar donated to their programs, and with your help, they can do more. Missioners, workers, volunteers, supporters, we are all Marino.
I am Marino.
Yo soy Marino.
I'm Father Mike, and I am Marino.
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 The song we have for you today is from the CD called Just Jesus. It is by the Kellenberg Memorial High School Choir.
In the midst
And to tell us about the scriptures for this 22nd Sunday in Ordinary Time is Sister Mary McCormick. She is the General Superior of the Ursuline Sisters of Youngstown.
I'm all in. When I hear that from someone, or when I say it myself, it is a way of conveying that one has invested time, energy, and personal resources in a project or cause. For the most part, we don't put ourselves all in unless we're pretty convinced that it's a good idea and will be successful. Though the prophet Jeremiah never says he was all in his relationship with God, I suspect that he was when he complains, "You duped me, O Lord, and I let myself be duped." God called Jeremiah to be a prophet. Jeremiah responded, all in, and then he was duped. He became the object of laughter, derision, and reproach. That would be enough to make me think twice, or 3 times, about throwing myself all in anymore. Still, God calls Jeremiah, and his call felt like fire burning in his heart. Though he felt like he had been hoodwinked by God, the prophet knew in the depth of his heart that he had been called by God for this task. And that is exactly the call of the gospel. Jesus says to his disciples today, "Whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up her cross, and follow me." Being a disciple of Jesus will involve suffering. We interpret this suffering in light of the cross of Jesus. He freely took up the cross, and he invites us to do the same. Usually in life, we don't need to look for a cross. It finds us. The cross that each of us must bear in life comes in a variety of forms. Here are some examples. The cross comes when we are hurt or betrayed by someone we considered a friend. It comes when the plans we made for our lives are shattered by something unexpected. It comes when a significant relationship is broken by distance, divorce, or death. It comes when someone we love is sick or in pain. It comes when our own bodies begin to ache and fall apart. These are not punishments. This is not God's way of getting back at us for our past sins. Rather, if we really want to be disciples of Jesus, we have to be all in, even through the pain of whatever is the cross in our life. It is at this point that the words of St. Paul make more sense. Offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. The pain we feel from physical or emotional distress can be part of the living sacrifice, the making holy of the cross of discipleship. Our faith is not simply saying prayers or learning creeds or passages from the Catechism. Our faith is proven to the extent that we live it out in our lives, even through pain. One more thing from the reading from Paul's letter to the Romans. St. Paul writes, "Be transformed by the renewal of your mind." One of the hallmarks of Catholicism is the positive relationship between faith and reason. Catholicism is not solely intellectual, and it is not solely an assent of faith. Catholics hold that both faith and reason support our lives as disciples of Jesus. So we give an assent of faith, but that assent of faith is informed by reason. Discipleship requires the commitment of being all in. Jeremiah, St. Paul, and Jesus each provide a witness to that discipleship. Each of us must live that discipleship out within the context of our own lives. For Wineskins, I'm Sister Mary McCormick.
The cross reminds us of the seriousness of our sins because it speaks of Christ's sacrificial love. The cross also reminds us of the challenge of the great adventure that we now take with Christ. May we pick up our cross and faithfully follow Him. Wineskins is made possible through the annual Bishop's Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts. The program is produced by CTNY, the Catholic Telecommunications Network of Youngstown. I'm Father Jim Corda, saying thank you for being with us. Have a blessed week and a safe holiday.